may howl and yell, though they're in league with hell, they'll not reign long. Satan may lead the van and do the worst he can. Paine and his Rights of Man shall be my song. This fine parody, composed in 1791, is taught in no school and sung in no assembly. But it captures with its defiant and satirical pugnacity the spirit that was aroused that year by the publication of Thomas Paine's classic. Joseph Mather was a radical file-maker in the city of Sheffield. One wonders whether he inspired or whether he drew from the song that was struck up at an evening of the more mainstream Society for Constitutional Information, which at its London meeting in March 1791 voted its thanks to Paine, and then heard members of the successful majority intone, "God save the right of man, let despots, if they can, them overthrow." It seems likely that Mather was writing later in the year, since it is easy enough to interpret his apparently odd phrase, "Birmingham blush for shame." It was in Birmingham in the autumn of 1791 that a Tory-inspired mob, frenzied by the cry of "Church and King," broke into Joseph Priestley's house, destroying the library and laboratory of the self-taught scientist who had discovered oxygen. This incident, another of those historical episodes that is not taught in school, decided Priestley on a move to America, whose revolutionary and republican cause he had already espoused in a pamphlet. He was there to become a welcome guest and a participant in the great Philadelphia Renaissance that featured such men as Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Rush, and Thomas Jefferson. One should not allow oneself to forget that the English friends of the revolutions in America and France were not always greeted only with the high moral tones of Edmund Burke, who approved of the Church and King mobocracy when the mob was on his side, but also with persecution and repression of quite a high and systematic degree. Other contemporary clues can be found in Mather's lines. He used the word patriot to describe the supporters of the democratic and radical cause. This had also been the term employed by John Wilkes's faction in Parliament and its supporters outside it, the famous partisans of Wilkes and liberty against a German crown and a Tory-dominated system of rotten boroughs. It was only that version of patriotism, incidentally, that the Tory Dr. Samuel Johnson described in a remark that has been misunderstood and misquoted ever since as the last refuge of the scoundrel. The word Bastille was also fresh in the mind in 1791 as the symbol of the French absolutist monarchy and as a synonym for the many dark prisons in which the liberals of Europe had so long been confined and tortured. The Marquis de Lafayette, chivalric hero of both the American and the French revolutions, gave the key of the Bastille to Thomas Paine and requested him to forward it to President George Washington as a token of French regard to the American people. Paine had done so with delight in the year before he published Rights of Man, adding a covering letter which described the key as "this early trophy of the spoils of despotism and the first ripe fruits of American principles transplanted into Europe." The key hangs to this day on the wall of Washington's home at Mount Vernon. The date of Paine's letter was the 1st of May, which a century or so later was the date selected by American workers as the one on which to begin the struggle for the 8-hour day, and afterwards by the labour movements of all countries as May Day, the holiday and carnival and fiesta of the oppressed. Spring and the natural world were ordinary metaphors for Paine, as they have always been for those who witness the melting of political glaciers and the unfreezing of the tundra of despotism. "I have not the least doubt of the final and complete success of the French Revolution," Paine went on in his letter to George Washington. Little ebbings and flowings for and against, the natural companions of revolutions, sometimes appear, but the full current of it is, in my opinion, as fixed as the Gulf Stream. The same metaphor of a warming current coming from across the seas is to be found in Paine's dedication of Rights of Man. To George Washington, President of the United States of America. Sir, I present you a small treatise in defence of those principles of freedom which your exemplary virtue hath so eminently contributed to establish. That the rights of man may become as universal as your benevolence can wish, and that you may enjoy the happiness of seeing the new world regenerate the old, is the prayer of, Sir, your much obliged and obedient humble servant, Thomas Paine. It was that